The scene begins with a traffic accident where bystanders rush to the scene, calling an ambulance because someone is trapped inside the vehicle. The person in the car felt like they were about to die, alone with no family or friends. There is nothing valuable left to keep and no special memories to cherish. His life was filled with loneliness, and he wondered what life would be like after death. The scene shifts to an elven family in another world. This is where Lisa, the main character, tells his father that he will go into the woods alone to find food. His mother anxiously asked if that was wise, reminding him that the forest was full of dangers. She expressed her concern, saying that Lisa was only 10 years old and should wait until she was at least 30 before going out there. However, Lisa insisted that they had no need to worry. At this time of year, the muscular wolves wouldn't be a threat. His mother was still hesitant to let him go alone. Lise said that life, foraging for food and napping in the forest, was simple and easy for him. Lisa's father remarked that he was growing faster than other children. Lisa's mother gently stroked his face, expressing concern about him maturing too quickly, especially considering that the elven lifespan could extend to 1,000 years. Lise pondered this, recalling how he should have died in a horrific accident. Instead, he was reborn as a member of the elven race, who typically live for 1,000 years. Now he enjoys life as Lisa. Although he didn't know why it happened, he believed it was a second chance granted by the gods, and he was determined to live life to the fullest, without regrets, in this world for the past 10 years. Lise embraced her new life, beginning to build a foundation for a brighter future. However, due to the elven people's long lifespans, the concept of time became vague and fluid. Furthermore, the village surrounding the ancient Adril tree was protected by a massive, invisible shield, rendering threats from natural disasters and the dangers of magical beasts virtually non-existent. The Aedril's fruit flourished, becoming the main food source for the villagers. The elven people thrived in this environment. Born to live in harmony with the surrounding nature, most elven people spent thousands of years of their lives in this village without ever venturing outside. As Lisa was about to speak, the village chief, a frail old man leaning on a cane, approached and remarked that Klein's son was as energetic as ever. He noted that Lisa had only learned to speak 5 years ago, yet now he was already curious about the outside world. Lisa's mother apologized to the village chief, but he reassured her that it was all right. He noticed that some elven people had expressed interest in the outside world, but he warned that it was a dangerous route. Having served as village chief for over 600 years, he had witnessed many elven people venturing out and meeting tragic ends, particularly those connected to humans, who often face sorrowful fates. This makes the outside world dangerous. The village chief asked Lisa if he still wanted to explore the outside world, and remarked that Lisa was more intelligent than the others. Lisa expressed his gratitude to his parents for raising him, and thanked all the people in the forest for taking care of him. He spoke of his desire to leave a mark, to show that he had lived in this world. He thought that even if he had 1,000 years to live, he wouldn't want to live forever in a small, confined world. He wanted to learn many things and meet many different people. He reiterated that he wanted to live a life without regrets. Lisa's father replied that if Lisa was truly determined, they wouldn't stop him. The village chief gently patted Lisa on the head and said that it had been hundreds of years since the last elven had ventured out into the world. Now, the village chief is willing to let Lisa do that, provided he passes the exam. Lisa was thrilled and agreed to take on the challenge. The village chief instructed him to master the highest level of elven healing magic, which resided in his soul within a century. Lise wondered about the meaning of 100 years. The village chief explained that this was important because the outside world was very dangerous, and Lisa needed to be able to protect himself. If Lisa passed the exam within 100 years, the village chief would allow him to explore the outside world. And he asked if Lisa understood. Lise thought for a moment, realizing that 100 years sounded like an eternity. But in reality, it was only a tenth of an elven's lifespan. He felt that if this was the only condition for venturing out into the world, then it would be a worthwhile challenge. Lise agreed, and the village chief warned him that this exam is not a challenge that can be passed half-heartedly, and this cannot be forgotten. 10 years have passed, and Lisa is now testing her healing magic by healing an ancient tree. The village chief was astonished to see that his great ancestor, having survived for over 1,000 years, it has now been restored. This spell represents the pinnacle of elven magic, the ultimate healing spell. The village chief couldn't believe that only 10 years had passed since Lisa began training. He asked Lisa how he managed to achieve this incredible feat. Lise replied that he had been practicing magical powers since he was a child. The village chief, curious, asked him when he had started, and Lisa said that he was now 22 years old, so he had probably started practicing when he was about 5. Lise realized that before receiving permission from the village chief to venture into the forest, he had already prepared for his future. The first part of his plan was to cultivate and enhance his overall magical power. He recalled that within the ancient tree lay a vast library filled with magical books, mostly written by humans. Through those studies, he learned that a person's magical potential was typically determined around the age of 20. Lisa understood that 3 factors were crucial to success: circumstances, innate ability, and effort. The frequency with which a person can unleash their magical power is directly proportional to the increase in their magical ability. Understanding this, Lisa pushed herself to the limit, using healing spells continuously until she was nearly exhausted. However, he realized that the average lifespan of a human was only about 60 years, meaning their magical powers usually only developed until they were 20 years old. This made him wonder, what would happen if an elven practiced their techniques? He speculated that his magical powers could continue to grow until he reached the age of 300. The village chief was astonished. He had never imagined that anyone would reach the pinnacle of healing magic so quickly, especially with the exam still 80 years away. Lise then said that he had read in a magic book that elven people specialized in healing magic, dwarves specialized in earth magic, and monsters possessed types of magic suited to their species. However, through research and practice, Lisa came to believe that, theoretically, using other types of magic was also possible. In the forest library, most of the magic books focused only on healing spells, so he asked the village chief if there were any books on other types of magic elsewhere. The village chief, looking surprised, agreed and asked if Lisa really intended to learn other forms of magic. Lise replied that until the exam ends in 80 years, he wants to achieve as many accomplishments as possible. The village chief remarked that although ghosts no longer exist, but the passion for learning magic was something even the elven couldn't help but inherit. He then gave Lisa the key to the forest library, allowing him access to forbidden books. However, he warned that the magic books that Lisa lacked the aptitude for would require a great deal of time to understand. Even if he could comprehend them, it might take as long as 100 years. Lise received the key gratefully, promising to do his best to reach the pinnacle in all forms of magic. The village chief advised him to remain calm throughout his training. After careful reading in the library, 10 more years passed. Lise realized it was time to take the exam. By the age of 30, he had mastered all kinds of magic as promised, and wondered what magic books he would find in the library by then. At this time, the village chief also entrusted Lisa with the responsibility of maintaining and managing the library. Filled with excitement, Lisa sets out to search for magical books from the outside world, marking a significant day for him. The elven's only connection to the outside world was through the people who governed the surrounding area, particularly the Verlanda family. The former village chief and head of the family made a vow, initiating a long-lasting cultural relationship between the two peoples. Lise searches for magical books from the outside world, transforms products from ancient trees into assets, and makes a deal with the head of the family, Grulet Garlandia. Sitting on a tree branch, Lisa recalled a young elven who had called him teacher It was observed that none of the humans could keep up with Lisa's magical training, an undertaking completely outside of elven tradition. Then, the young elven suggested that Lisa should meet up with her childhood friend. Lise paused, lost in thought as he recalled their last meeting. Just then, he saw a carriage approaching. At first, Lise thought the person inside was Grillet, but he quickly realized that the boy's appearance had changed a lot since they last met. When the boy looked around, Lisa hid her hand, which startled Grillet slightly, surprising him. Lise approached, greeted him, and called him Grillet. He said it had been a long time since they last met and asked what kind of magic book Grillet had brought with him this time. The boy was surprised to see Lisa and exclaimed that it was true. Lisa really did exist, just as his father had said. Lisa wondered which father the boy was talking about. The boy knelt before Lisa and explained that this was the first time he had met her, and that he was Gilead's son, Galeus. He went on to say that his father had told him about Lisa. Recognizing this as Galeus, son of Gilead, Lise couldn't help but think that they had only met a few days ago. Galeus explained that his father had wanted to see Lisa in person, but no one could resist the passage of time, and Gilead was no exception. As he began to feel the weight of the years, Galeus, the eldest son, decided to visit, hoping his presence would be accepted. Lise then asked Galeus when he had last been to the forest. Galeus replied that his parents had gotten married about 2 years ago. That means almost 22 years have passed since Galeus last visited the forest. Lisa reflected on how only 22 years had gone by since he became an elven. He had completely lost track of time. But he realized how quickly people's lives change. When Lise mentioned leaving the forest soon, Galeus was surprised to learn that Lise only had 7 years left before leaving. Lise nodded, realizing that by human standards, he was 93 years old. He added that if he ever left the forest, he would definitely visit Galeus's family. And he asked Galeus to tell Gilead that Lisa was very much looking forward to meeting him. Galeus was overjoyed. He took Lisa's hand and agreed, assuring her that his father would also be delighted to hear the news. After saying goodbye, Galeus left, leaving Lisa alone, lost in thought about the future. Lise told himself that if he could just pass the Elder's test, he would surely have a chance to see Grillet again. Back in the library, Lise took out a pile of books and spread them out on the floor. He thought that during the rest of his years in the forest, he wouldn't feel bored. Lise chose a book and began reading stories about heroes who were not suited to magic. These stories reminded him of fairy tales. The story of a hero who defeated a demon king sparks his imagination and inspires him on his journey ahead. Lisa continues to ponder the world beyond the forest, realizing that the demonic monsters have long since disappeared, and even the existence of the elven might be doubted by humans. Lise discovered an ancient book, seemingly a long-forgotten book of magic. The book was in a very fragile condition, its pages yellowed with age. Intrigued, Lisa began reading about the various types of teleportation magic, believing that he could at least grasp some basic concepts. Having mastered all kinds of magic, Lisa was eager to explore the ancient magical world. He recalled that long ago humanity had become extinct, but once possessed terrifying magical powers, while demonic monsters had previously used their mystical abilities to control the world. These ancient spells are incredibly diverse and different from the 4 basic types of magic, often requiring special conditions to summon. Many spells can take months or even years to fully understand. But the prospect of unlocking this knowledge excited Lisa greatly. Determined, Lisa picked up the book and decided to try a spell, planning to practice near his home. He began chanting the Vizandali teleportation spell, feeling a strange surge of energy flow through him as he completed the incantation. Lise wondered if he had actually pronounced the spell correctly the first time. In the blink of an eye, Lisa found herself transported to a dense forest. The air around her was heavy, and the moment he opened his eyes, he immediately heard the growling of a creature nearby. The smell of blood filled the air, sharpening his senses and sending shivers down his spine. Lisa realized he had wandered into a realm far more dangerous than he had imagined. When Lisa regained his balance, he found himself standing before a group of gigantic creatures, their menacing forms surrounding him. Behind him, Lisa noticed several men, their faces filled with confusion and fear. He overheard them whispering to each other, wondering where he came from and whether he was a member of the group. He felt a wave of confusion wash over him. He had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. It seemed that, although he had successfully used teleportation magic, he had somehow left the protective barrier surrounding his forest. Lisa's mind raced as he assessed the situation. Then, his gaze settled on a child lying near the monster's feet. The little girl was injured, but surprisingly, she was still alive. Lisa felt a growing sense of anxiety. And instinctively, he moved closer to the child, determined to help her escape the imminent danger. He recalled that after leaving the forest, he had learned and used a new movement technique. He should have appeared near home, but it seems he's arrived in a completely unfamiliar place. Based on his current situation, he realizes he's outside Idrisel's protective circle. And behind him were people he had never met before. They were asking him who he was and whether the organization had sent him. Lise saw a pack of monsters in front of him, and a child had been attacked by them. One man explained that they were being pursued not only by monsters, but also by thugs from the gang and their goods. He lamented their terrible luck. Suddenly, a wolf let out a growl, and the group realized it was targeting them. In a panic, they started running away. Lisa realized that although they intended to use him as bait, he was determined not to let that happen. Leaving the injured child behind, he refused to let their plan succeed. Lise immediately cast a dark magic spell, Black Whip, to imprison all of them, rendering them unable to move. These people looked at each other in bewilderment, not understanding what strange thing had wrapped around them, rendering them unable to move. Lise turned to look at the injured child, thinking he could help her. But at that moment, he saw the pack of wolves charging towards him. He immediately activated the hardening spell, enhancing his magic, and he used Beast Fist to hit a wolf. The injured child watched Lisa fight. Meanwhile, Lisa realized this was the first time he had used the Beastman's enhancement spell, and he was surprised at how effective it was for his muscles. He quickly took down the next wolf. One man noticed Lisa's ears and asked the owner if they belonged to an elf. The owner, surprised, asked why a creature that only existed in legends could be here. A third person added, saying there were rumors that elves could only use healing magic. Lise looked at the child again and realized that she seemed to be the only one still clinging to life. If she's still alive, you can treat her. Lise approached the girl, reassuring her that everything would be all right and she would recover soon. Lise activated her dragon's healing breath skill, infusing the little girl with a surge of healing power. A man saw this and wondered if Lisa was setting the little girl on fire. The owner denied it, explaining that the girl was absorbing the flames. Eventually, she recovered. And the other man exclaimed in surprise that a wound that could only be healed by great healing magic had now been healed in the blink of an eye. When the little girl tried to say something, she pointed to the necklace around her neck. And Lisa understood immediately. He realized it was a binding magic, preventing the little girl from speaking. She nodded in confirmation. Lise touched the necklace and explained that if anyone other than her owner tried to remove it, it would automatically self-destruct. He realized that these magical tools had been made for slaves, and finally understood the current situation. Lise reassured the little girl that she had done very well by enduring everything so bravely. He told her to trust him. Lise decided to remove the magic from the necklace, but to do so, he needed to infuse it with a much stronger amount of magical power than before, and also use a destructive spell. He chanted the spell Devil's Thread. And when he took off the necklace, he threw it aside just before it exploded. He told her that she had done very well to endure everything. Seeing that, the leader of the group sighed and realized that Lisa had definitely broken a magical seal. Another man asked if Lisa was really an elf. Lisa approached them, wondering what to do now that they had discovered his identity. The boss explained that they had been tasked with protecting the children, but their luck ran out when they encountered a pack of muscular wolves. They tried to fight back, but the monsters tore them apart and devoured them one by one. Without Lisa's help, they would all surely have been killed and eaten. They were filled with gratitude and begged Lisa to deliver them. Lise wondered if they really wanted to help, and he realized they might already understand his situation. But with her extensive experience, Lisa knew they were plotting to steal everything. When they heard Lisa knew about their plan, they were very surprised. Lisa informed them that he would ask them 3 questions. First, he wanted to know who they were. Second, he asked why they had changed. Finally, he asked them what their motive was for kidnapping the young children while they were traveling through a dangerous forest. Lisa warned them that if they answered truthfully, he would spare their lives. The group became frightened and promised to answer truthfully. Finally, they confessed that they were merely hired slave traders, and that there were parents willing to sell their children when they needed money. Regarding the second question, they explained that they were being pursued because someone in the group had betrayed them. Regarding the third question, they revealed that while en route to deliver goods for a transaction, they were pursued and had no choice but to escape through the forest. Lise pondered this, realizing that in this world, the nature of humanity was not much different from what he had witnessed before. Lise recalled the warning from the tribal chief, who had emphasized that she should never get involved with humans, because they are brutal, cunning, and vicious creatures. The tribal chief advised Lisa never to forget those words. However, Lisa stopped reminiscing and returned to the present, where the group's leader pleaded that since they had answered all the questions correctly, Lisa should let them go. Lisa noted that the tribal chief had repeatedly advised him to stay away from humans, suggesting they would forget what had happened, perhaps even forget to meet Lisa. But just as they were about to act, the leader, surprised, asked him what he was saying. Lisa immediately cast a memory-altering spell, the memory burial spell. The group suddenly became confused, and Lisa decided to leave them there, even though they had no memory of anything. The little girl tugged at Lisa's sleeve, calling him her benefactor, and asked if he was an elven. Lise nodded, introducing himself as Lisa. He felt relieved that she could speak again, and he apologized for not being able to help the other children. When he looked at the girl's chest, Lisa discovered a cross-shaped scar, the mark of a magical tool, proving that she was a slave. The little girl said that if she were stronger, she could certainly help other children, at least to protect them. But now she feels helpless. She can't do anything. Seeing the immense power of the magic Lise used, the little girl longed to become as powerful as her. The little girl begged Lisa to let her follow him, so she could learn and become stronger. Lise sensed a hint of awkwardness in the girl's words. If she truly wanted to be strong, he realized that deep down, she possessed an unwavering determination. Despite being warned against getting involved with humans, he couldn't bring himself to abandon the little girl. He interfered in her life. And now, he feels a heavy responsibility to bring the little girl back safely. He reminded himself that now, he is no longer human. Although it will take another 7 years before it can be brought out into the world, it was a period of time that meant nothing to him, but for the little girl, it would feel like an eternity. He couldn't bear the thought of her having to wait all that time. With unwavering resolve, Lisa was forced to make a choice. He couldn't allow the girl to accompany him, for the difference in their perception of time was too great. Lisa raised his hand and cast a spell, causing the girl to faint. As she fell into a coma, he felt a heavy weight in his heart, but knew it was the only thing he could do at this moment. Just as she lost consciousness, Lisa heard footsteps approaching. They were the people searching for the slave traders, determined to prevent their escape. Time was running out, he needed to leave immediately. Lisa decided to hand everything over to the slave traders. He jumped onto a branch, telling himself that in 7 years, if the girl's resolve remains unchanged, they will surely meet again. Later, he returned to the library, where he heard rumors about an extraordinary girl who called herself the Nameless One. She is said to possess extraordinary strength and has achieved remarkable military feats. Finally, 100 years passed since Lisa became an elf, and a strange girl came to visit the chieftain's house. She apologized for being summoned, but she just said it was all right. The chieftain reiterated that Lisa had always been there. And he recalled the promise he had made to Lisa to train him until he turned 100. But it seemed Lisa's heart remained unmoved. Elves are born to live peaceful lives in the village, under the protection of the Yggdrasil tree. The chief then asked the girl what she thought would happen if an elf like Lisa went out into the world, like a baby mouse jumping into a battlefield. The girl replied that the result would become clear when they saw the fire. Lise looked outside, thinking to himself that this day had finally arrived. He had trained for 100 years for this moment, and now, the final day of the exam, before he can leave the ancient forest, has arrived. The tribal chief met with Lisa to inform her that the final exam had concluded. After a century of training, Lisa's desire to leave the ancient forest remains unchanged. Lise nodded in agreement. Just then, they heard a voice calling the chieftain, remarking that it seemed they had a child full of energy about to leave. Even though someone was speaking, Lisa couldn't see who it was. The chief explained that the other man had never lost to him, nor was he inferior to Lisa, which made him uneasy. The mysterious voice continued to speak, suggesting that Lisa must be a genius to be allowed to leave this place after only a century of training. The chieftain admitted that Lisa's talent was difficult to describe in words. Perhaps with what she had accomplished, Lisa herself would gradually realize her true limits. Unexpectedly, a girl appeared before him, graceful yet mysterious. She was like a harbinger of impending challenges. Dazed, Lisa wondered where she had come from. She identified herself as Rahab Lori, a being nearly 6 centuries old. He immediately recognized her as the mythical figure who had appeared among mortals to heal the dying in exchange for rare fruits. This meeting made Lisa extremely excited. He clearly remembered that she was the one who had collected hundreds of books from the outside world centuries ago. Her name was mentioned countless times in them. Compared to me, she's like a knowledgeable senior. But contrary to expectations, Rahab turned out to be a muscular goblin with extensive combat experience. She said the test was very simple. Lisa just needed to survive until she ran out of magic from the attack. Using healing spells wouldn't matter. Having honed her skills for 3 centuries, she only asked that he not be too rough. Lise thought to himself, if he just passed the test, he would be free. He eagerly awaited that moment, but before he could prepare, a matrix appeared beneath his feet, and from there, boulders shot up, as if wanting to crush everything in the first moment of the battle. Lise dodged, stunned to realize his opponent had unleashed such powerful magic without chanting a spell. Earth magic, Earth Strike, has just been cast. This caused his magical foundation to tremble, as if it were being heavily suppressed. He gradually realized she was beginning to read his every move. Another blow came. The pressure escalated. Lise wanted to react, but deep down he felt a sense of injustice. Rahab attacked relentlessly, her staff emitting a continuous glow, a sign that another spell was about to be cast. She made no secret of her contempt. Humankind was inherently cruel, cunning, and weak. Amidst the magical rain, Lisa realized the outside world has no place for those who only know how to receive. To survive, he had to learn how to fight. Without hesitation, he cast Varlane's earth magic, erecting a barrier to defend against the attack, a magic spell on par with Rahab's earth-shattering spear. She was intrigued, surprised by his abilities. As an elf, she'd always thought Lisa only knew how to heal. But now, he's like a different person, bold, reckless, and full of potential. Lise himself understood that. His motivation stemmed from memories of a past life, when he was human. Gathering momentum, he used the wind body spell, propelling himself into the air. Rahab realized this was grand magic, a form of advanced spell. In that moment, she wondered if she could shoot him down from that height. The answer came immediately afterward. Blazing fireballs detached from the staff, tearing through the air as they hurtled towards him. Mid-air, Lise realized that although her power hadn't reached its ultimate level, her ability to cast spells without focusing made her incredibly dangerous. He reminded himself he mustn't allow himself to be distracted, not even for a second. Rahab admitted to being impressed by Lisa's skills, but she also warned that her offensive tactics wouldn't stop. Soon, he would have nowhere to escape. While Lisa was still avoiding the question, she unexpectedly threw out a question that made him freeze. Why did he want to leave this world? Unexpectedly, Lisa still answered amidst the battle. He believed that the lives of the elves were long, but could easily pass by in silence without purpose. Rahab replied that the elf village was more peaceful than anywhere else. To her, it was paradise. Lisa pondered. A century had passed since he was reborn as an elf. So many failures, so many restarts, all for a single goal, to reach the pinnacle of magic. But more fundamentally, it's a desire to leave a mark on this world. He recalled his past life, a dull existence, without purpose, without any true connections. In the end, only regret remained. Now, in this new life, he wants to live differently. He wants to understand more, to experience more than anyone else, and to be remembered by someone. For that dream to come true, leaving the forest is inevitable. Lise paused in her train of thought, realizing she had just confessed everything to Rahab. She fell silent, lost in thought. And this time, it was Lisa's turn to ask, what about her? For what reason did she leave that peaceful place? Rahab pulled out a glistening fruit, cradling it like a treasure. Lisa watched intently, and before she could react, she revealed the real reason she longed to leave the forest, simply because she wanted to enjoy many delicious fruits. Lise was stunned. It turned out that all these years, she had only been luring people in exchange for fruit. She admitted that she had loved that flavor for a long time. In the forest, she could easily harvest the chrysanthemum berries. But after 50 years of eating the same thing, her palate had grown tired of it. From then on, her desire to explore other fruits emerged, prompting her to venture out into the world. Lise couldn't believe it. He asked if it was worth 300 years of arduous training. Rahab simply nodded, gently replying that she had tried her best, and 3 centuries passed. He actually thought that was a good thing. At least she was prepared. But what about the others? Their comrades who had left without undergoing training? She gazed into the distance. They had been swept away by the raging waves of the outside world. No one would return. It was through such rigorous training that she was able to protect herself, travel through many lands, and learn dark magic from humankind, a power that helped her survive and taste the flavors of countless exotic fruits. Rahab took a bite of the fruit in her hand, a hint of nostalgia crossing her face. There was a time when the outside world captivated her. But lately, she'd noticed those flavors had faded. They weren't as rich as before. Lisa suddenly thought about food. Besides fruit, what other flavors awaited her in the world? Meanwhile, hidden deep within the forest canopy, the chieftain silently observed everything that was happening. His eyes never left the 2 men. A test with a deeper meaning than a battle. Rahab returned to the game, reminding them they had been talking for too long. Now for the final part, where she will give it her all. Blazing fireballs and a barrage of spells rained down. Lisa quickly used wind magic, summoning a wind spirit, Sylph, to escape the storm. But the more he fought, the more he realized. Now he could only rely on Clantis's magic. Meanwhile, Rahab could control multiple elements at once, if she truly wanted to. Lise couldn't defend forever, so she counterattacked. He used the enhancement technique and hardening magic to create a beastly punch. An attack imbued with primal power shattered the object Rahab had just used, a magical spear. She picked up a piece of broken glass, examined it, and then admitted he had destroyed it. Lise was surprised. "What is that?" Rahab replied, "A magic stone, a type of stone crafted by humans that absorbs magical elements. With just a little energy infused into it, it will automatically cast spells." Lise was stunned. It turns out that all the magic she's been using so far wasn't her own. He couldn't help but wonder, could she really use so many different spells without chanting? Rahab calmly admitted, even now she could only truly use healing spells. The rest is just trickery. According to her, if a child doesn't even know how to deceive people, they won't survive out there. Rahab had thought she could crush all naive illusions. However, all of her cunning attacks were completely dodged by Lisa. The battle was over, and she acknowledged his triumph. The challenge was complete. Lise was overflowing with joy. Finally, a century of relentless training had brought him to the finish line. He bowed his head in gratitude. Rahab smiled, gently acknowledging. He had fought with everything he had. If Lisa had been born earlier, she said, perhaps someone would have considered him a menace, a devastating demon lord among men. Lisa chuckled softly. All those long years, every drop of sweat poured down, culminated in this moment. He had earned his well-deserved reward. The scene shifts to a bustling marketplace in the human world. A young girl entered the fruit shop, her face beaming but maintaining a polite demeanor. The shop owner greeted her warmly as she approached. She took out some shiny coins and pointed at all the fruits displayed on the counter. The seller was stunned. He couldn't believe she was once again planning to spend her entire fortune on fruit. He asked for the reason. The girl bowed her head slightly and whispered, because she had heard that the elves loved fruit. When he tried to ask more questions, she just shook her head, indicating it was nothing important, and then urged him to complete the transaction. Unable to refuse, the seller agreed. During the exchange, she silently pondered something. Her mind wavered slightly. For how long had it been since she had waited for the moment to see him again? She was certain that the day of reunion was not far off. Meanwhile, Lisa's father and his group were gathering fruit when he appeared, walking towards them with the tribal chief. News of his passing the test spread quickly. His father couldn't hide his excitement, and the tribal chief claimed to have witnessed the whole thing firsthand. His mother gently suggested he take a short break at home. 10 years wasn't a long time. For the elves, time always flows slower than on the earth. But Lisa had made up his mind. He would leave tomorrow. Even so, his mother reminded him, at 100 years old, he was still just a child in their eyes. Lise recounts the test he underwent alongside his senior Rahab, a man who understood the world and recognized his abilities. His father immediately recognized the name. Rahab Lori, to him, she was like a younger sister. He recalled the first time he set foot in the deep forest. This is where Rahab began pursuing healing magic. If even someone like Rahab acknowledged Lise, then there was no reason for him to doubt her. Lise remained unwavering. He was ready to leave this peaceful place and venture into the wider world. His father turned his back, took something out, and asked him to make a wish, but before Lisa could speak, his mother interrupted. That before her son left, there was one more thing that needed to be clarified. His mother said that before he departed, she still had a few things to do. Things only a mother could do. Lise was slightly surprised, but obeyed and sat down. She approached, her gentle eyes filled with unspoken words. From her sleeve, she took out a small object, a silver pendant, gleaming with a faint emerald hue. It was the object that had kept her hair so lustrous for so many years. That locket was more than just a keepsake. When she and Lisa's father were married, the sacred tree Idrisel bestowed it upon them as a charm, part of a divine blessing, eternally protecting the wearer. Lise took it, and he could feel a gentle energy emanating from within. He was about to say that he was already 100 years old and didn't need to worry anymore. But before he could utter a word, his mother's arms tightened around him from behind. She whispered, hoping that if one day he ever fell, at least, he would let them go first. He nodded. The promise was made, not with words, but with the heart. Shortly after, his father called back. Before Lisa lay dozens of carefully prepared boxes, food, supplies, herbs, enough for a decade. Lise was stunned. For so many years, he had been quietly preparing everything, simply believing that the time would come when his son would need to leave. His mother exclaimed, worried that he wouldn't be able to carry all that treasure. But Lisa merely smiled. With a wave of his hand, he deployed space-preserving magic, an ancient technique simulating teleportation magic, interfering with the inner realm to maintain the physical state within. No decay, no rot, no degradation. The magic astonished both his parents. His mother laughed heartily, joking that she wished she had one like that too. The chieftain stood silently behind them, thinking to himself, that skill was not just magic, it was a sign of someone who had touched upon an ancient mystery. The next day, Lisa was ready to leave. With a wave of his hand, he walked away, officially departing. His mother watched them go, her heart filled with longing. She sighed, saying that from now on she would feel empty, but also believed that one day they would be together again. Lisa continued walking, a feeling of unease rising in his heart. He wondered if Rahab was still there, but then thought she might have already left. His destination now is the Garland house. He recalled the only human family that had ever communicated with Elvin Kond, the Garland family, and the promise made 7 years earlier to Galeus. Although he hasn't been able to meet them yet due to his prolonged illness, he now longs to see Gilead again. As he approached the protective boundary of Yggdrasil, sensing the surrounding magic, he stepped through and officially entered the outside world. The weather today is beautiful, the sky is clear and blue, perfect for a trip. Suddenly, a roar echoed from behind. Lisa turned around and saw a group of wild beasts approaching. But just as they were about to attack, a girl appeared, using fire magic to summon a legion of flames. With a single swing of her arm, the entire pack of wolves was annihilated. Lise was surprised by her speed and efficiency. She turned to look at him, then stepped closer. A fleeting feeling of fear crossed his mind, but he couldn't take his eyes off her. She sat down, smiling gently. "I have waited for you for 7 years," she said, her voice warm and low. Lise noticed a cross-shaped wound on the girl's cheek, and then he suddenly realized she was the woman he had saved 7 years ago. She nodded, confirming his recognition, but said that her memory of the moment was rather vague, leaving only a faint glimmer of hope fueled by his words at the time. It was that very hope that motivated her to persevere in her training, waiting for this moment. He admitted that he had never imagined she would keep her word so well. She smiled, agreeing with him. Lisa recalled that day when he used healing magic to save her from the brink of death. She vowed to become stronger. Lisa remembered using magic to seal those memories deep within her heart. But even so, she remembered his words, exceeding all his expectations. Then the girl pulled up a box and said that since he had remembered her, she hoped to give it to him if he would accept it. Lise was surprised by the size of the box and asked if there would be any problem if he opened it to see what was inside. She nodded in agreement, and when he opened the box, he was surprised to find it full of fruit. She explained that she had heard that all spirits love fruit. From tropical cactus fruits from the west to icy fruits from the Arctic, she traveled far and wide, collecting all kinds of fruits from around the world to give to him. She invited him to eat as much as he wanted, without a worry. Lisa was surprised by her thoughtfulness. He wondered if the elves' love of fruit had truly spread to humanity. He began to think that perhaps it was an influence from Rahab. He asked her curiously how long it had taken her to collect all these fruits. The girl replied that she had used all the money she earned from her bounty hunting. Lisa was astonished by the answer, exclaiming that the amount she mentioned was truly enormous. She insisted that even so, it wasn't enough. Lisa disagreed, saying it was actually far too much. He wondered if she was all right. It seemed they both carried their own anxieties, as neither knew much about the outside world. He thanked her for her kindness. But then she asked him if he had any plans to go anywhere and insisted on going with him. Lisa hesitated, replying that it was possible. She explained that she had experience as an explorer, could guide him, and assist in negotiations with people. Lise realized she was right. He had only recently left the village and knew little about the outside world. Moreover, as a spirit, rarely venturing outside his territory, he felt reassured having someone like her accompany him. He then asked her if she had any problem joining them. She confidently replied that she'd done everything she could over the past 7 years to prepare for today, so there was nothing to worry about. Lise felt confused and asked her again if that was really the whole reason. She smiled, nodded, and then went on to say that the reason she did all of this was to become stronger. The girl longed to learn from Lisa's strength for the rest of her life. Lise found her resolve admirable, but he couldn't help but wonder about her words. For your entire life? He thought, given her age, it was probably only about 40 more years. He was surprised to think she was planning to be with him for 40 years, even though that seemed a bit far-fetched. Although feeling a little overwhelmed, Lisa was still happy to be seen in that way. But after all, 40 years is still just 40 years. Then Lisa told her that he wanted to go to the Garland house. She replied that it was located in the Garland swamps. Then she started looking through the map. Lisa thanked her for her help. Meanwhile, he also activated his magic skill to retrieve a fruit. He thought it would be great to enjoy one right now. When he took a bite, he was surprised to feel a pleasant, tingling sensation from the fruit. Minori called his name, confirming that she understood his excitement. Lise felt a surge of happiness and urged her to set off. She smiled and agreed. The two approached a man, and Minori spoke up, wanting to trade a horned rabbit and 3 slimes. She asked what the best price he could offer was. Meanwhile, she heard people around her talking about her, calling her the strange woman. She immediately shouted, asserting that her name was Minori. Both felt a little confused. Lisa was wearing a long coat to cover her ears, and he couldn't help but think that Minori seemed quite popular in this place. Minori said that it seemed they would have enough to reach the border of Margaret Garland. A man asked if they were really going to Galeus, the lord of this region. He took over from the previous lord. Since then, the economy here has flourished, mainly due to the increased demand for hunting magical monsters, which eventually provided adventurers with enough to fill their dinner tables. Lise reflected on how 7 years had passed since he last met Goliath. The scenery shifts to 3 years after he left the land of the spirits. As he and Minori were walking, she pointed ahead and asked if he could see that if they continued down this road, they would be able to see Fort Kuchuk, part of the Margaret Garland border, just a little further on. Lise thought that for someone like him, who knew nothing about the outside world, Minori's presence was truly a blessing. Minori explained that they had left the forest and Fort Kuchuk should be near the border. Lord Garland kept many magical monsters in these border forests, helping to protect the empire from the haunted woods. As Lise walked away, he saw the 2 men dozing off while sitting. Lise noticed that the closer they got to the fortress, the more bodies of those who had fallen appeared. Minori said that she had recently heard about an invasion of magical monsters. Lise thought about Galeus, the lord known for his good reputation, but who seemed unable to handle the rise of these magical monsters. Lisa took a bite of the fruit and asked Minori if he was the only one who noticed, but the apple tasted a little strange. He offered her a piece. When Minori took a bite of the fruit that Lisa had eaten, she asked if it was really okay to eat something that he had touched with his lips. He reassured her that there was nothing to worry about, and she ate it. She commented that she didn't feel anything different. In fact, she found it even tastier. After finishing her meal, Lisa thought for a moment, then said that the taste of the fruit seemed to have diminished somewhat lately. Then he said he wanted to do some testing and use the Gransistis observation spell on the apple. He discovered that this apple is composed mainly of 80% water, 12% sugar, and 1% each of the other components, along with a little bit of miasma. The presence of the miasma startled him. When Minori asked him how the apple was, Lisa calmly replied that there was nothing wrong with it. It was just delicious, and encouraged her to eat more. Minori was touched by his gentle words. Lise couldn't believe he had found one of those phenomena previously controlled only by monstrous creatures, and it even seemed to bear a name similar to one of their special particles, miasma. However, could there really be such monstrous creatures in this world anymore? They arrived at Kukur Fortress, where Lisa met a guard. When the soldier heard that Lisa wanted to see Lord Galeus, he was surprised. The soldier explained that Galeus was a nobleman, vying for the highest position in the empire, and there was no way they could meet him. Lisa confidently replied that she was a friend of Galeus and had only asked the guard to pass on a message. The guard, who had served there for 5 years, proudly claimed to remember the faces of everyone who passed by, but failed to recognize Lisa. Minori was angry, pointing out that if the guards insulted Lisa, they were insulting her as well. Just then, Gallius appeared. He noticed the commotion and quickly recognized Lisa. The encounter stunned the guard. Gallius could not believe his eyes when he saw Lisa, as 7 years had passed since their last meeting. Gallius was delighted and thanked Lisa for remembering his promise. Lisa explained that he had come to meet both Gallius and Gilead. Gallius recounts a previous conversation with Gilead. He said that Lisa had to pass a test to leave the forest. When Lisa came out, Gallius encouraged him to visit their village, which was known only to the elves. Lisa agreed, then seriously said that he had a favor to ask Gilead. He asked Gilead to guarantee that he would not die before leaving the forest. Gilead agreed and told Lisa to leave the forest as quickly as possible. Lisa promised to do so. Gallius understood the promise his father had made to Lisa. Minori curiously asked Lisa if he was also a friend of the previous feudal lord. Lisa replied that Gallius was somewhat different from Gilead. Minori wondered if that were true, to which Gallius explained that he wasn't good at fighting. While his father earned the nickname God of War thanks to his superior fighting abilities. Minori went on to ask about the relationship between Lisa and Gilead, to which Lisa replied that Gilead was the first person to speak to him and was his friend. Gallius added that his father had spoken much about Lisa, and that when Lisa emerged from the forest, they would brew a local beer together, and he promised to make the world a better place. Lisa said he was happy to hear that, but wondered what would happen if he forgot that promise. Gallius laughed and said that if that were the case, his father would become a bad person. He reassured Lisa that his father had not forgotten his promise. He's just in a coma right now. Then they entered a room, and when Lisa saw Gilead lying there, Lisa asked if it was Gilead. Gallius explained that his father had been like this for the past 5 years, and the doctors had given up hope. Gallius was certain that his father would be delighted to know that Lisa had come to visit. Lisa greeted Gilead, saying it had been a long time since they last met. Gallius added that his father was a mighty warrior who had protected them from pirate attacks and monstrous beasts for 20 years. 5 years ago, someone found Gilead severely wounded on the battlefield, and since then he has fallen into a coma and has been steadily weakening. Gallius had to shoulder the role of feudal lord, but he had to use his power to protect the land his father had fought to defend, all alone. Despite being seriously injured, Gallius never understood the extent of his father's greatness until he was gone. Lisa recalled that before coming here, he had heard of Gallius's good reputation, but he had no idea about Gilead's serious health condition. Lisa was certain that Gallius had kept this information secret to avoid causing panic. He wondered if Gilead would fight the ghostly beast alone, and when he noticed the bruises on Gilead's hands, he decided to pull the blanket away. Minori asked Lisa what she was doing. Lisa turned to Gallius and asked if he knew anything about the bruises. Gallius explained that his father was considered the most powerful white magician in the region, but even he didn't understand those bruises. Upon seeing them, he tried using the most powerful magic he could perform, but it had no effect. Lise then used the observation spell on Gilead, and he discovered that Gilead's body contained 91% miasma. Lisa realized that the bruises were manifestations of miasma, a substance that exists in extremely high concentrations in Gilead's body. He understood that a white mage couldn't fight against miasma of such high concentration, and Gilead's body was reacting to it. Lise asked Gallius if he had tried the most advanced treatment. Gallius agreed. Lise said they would have to go even further and use the ultimate cure. He was certain that Gallius hadn't tried that magic. Gallius smiled and assured Lise that he had done everything he could, but none had worked. Lise insisted that he could not sit idly by for the past 100 years without doing anything. He had come to see his friend and couldn't leave without saying a word. Gallius understood exactly what Lisa was saying. Lise asked him to listen carefully and explained that even if Gilead woke up, he might only live for another 2 years. Lise then asked if Gallius wanted him to resurrect Gilead. Gallius replied that his father had always fought alone for them, and he had never had the chance to show his gratitude. His father had left everything to Gallius. And he said that if Lisa could revive Grilla, there were many things he wanted to say to them. Lise agreed and prepared to use her ultimate healing spell. He recalled the legend about how humans could unleash it. A process that, in theory, would take decades to succeed, is known as the pinnacle of healing magic. With determination, Lisa performed the ultimate healing spell, Rebarrel. After a while, Grillet opened his eyes and upon seeing Lise, called him teacher. Lise asked Grillet how he was feeling and reminded him that he had come as promised. Gaulius was moved to see his father awaken and embraced him tightly. Lisa thought to herself that on that day, her 100 years of hardship had finally paid off. Although he could only give Grillet 2 more years, he succeeded in giving his friend a new lease on life. Grillet couldn't believe his eyes when he woke up and saw Lisa beside him. He realized Gaulius had grown up a great deal. Lisa admitted that this must have been very difficult for Grillet, and he confirmed that Lisa had kept her promise. Lise replied that he had done so, but there was one more thing he wanted to ask Grillet. Then Lisa asked about what had happened that day. Grillet recounted that he was almost certain Fort Kuker had been attacked by some kind of magical monster. But beyond that, he couldn't remember anything. It felt as if his mind had gone blank. Lisa suggested that the obscurity might be a trick from the other side, possibly involving memory-altering magic. Grillet thought for a moment and then asked Lise if he believed in the existence of ghosts, which surprised Lisa greatly. Lise explained that Grillet had a high concentration of miasma around his body, a substance that could only be produced by ghosts. Grillet asked if Lisa was implying that this was the work of the supernatural and what they should do now. Lisa replied that, first, they needed to clear away the ambiguity. And he asked Grillet if he would allow him to explore his memories. Grillet gently requested it, and Lisa then used magic to alter memories. He delved into the past and quickly found himself witnessing a conversation between 2 creatures. One of them mocked a simple human, saying that they had thwarted their invasion attempt. But it seemed this time, they were out of luck and lacked the courage. The second creature asked them what they should do next. One of the creatures ordered the other to go and cause trouble with a person who had light. They emphasized that as long as they continued to attack Fort Quebec without destroying it, they would be able to approach from the other side. This creature noted that as soon as they found someone possessing the element of courage, they could eliminate them before that person could resurrect the demon lord. It was crucial to eliminate all elements of resistance. Lise turned to Grillet, admitting that he had just witnessed some disturbing things. Grillet urged Lisa not to speak out, because if he revealed that the monsters from fairy tales were returning, the world would descend into chaos. Lisa reassured him that he had a plan. Since they know the monsters' goals, finding someone with the courage will be simple. Before the monsters can act, they need to find someone who possesses the courage. Grillet asked if this was really true. He could hardly believe that the monsters had returned. Lise explained that there was no clearer evidence than the spell the monster used being altered just before Grillet fainted. The topic they were discussing at the time was the element of courage. Grillet wondered if they believed that element existed, then the fairy tale might be true. Lise clarified that Grillet was referring to well-known fairy tales, legends of the hero that all of humankind knows. Grillet agreed, suggesting that this was certainly the story they were thinking of. Lise recalled having read a little about this in the Elven Village Library, and he realized that courage had been mentioned in battle records as a force beyond this world. Grillet wondered if those monsters were searching within humanity for someone who possessed the element of courage. Lise agreed, asserting that finding people who possess courage is extremely important, because the other side had no idea that Grillet had discovered them. Grillet revealed that through their conversations, the person possessing the element of courage is undoubtedly a human being and is currently present at Fort Kuker. 20 years have passed since he inherited this territory from his father, and it is a widely known fact that the number of magical beast slayings here has increased significantly since he fell ill. Following his downfall, adventurers from all over the world flocked in, eager to claim the tempting rewards, which led to a wave of fierce battles with the beasts. Lise mentioned that if it were like a fairy tale, then those who possess the element of courage are certainly among these people. As he stood up, Grillat called after him, but Lisa simply replied that he would be heading to the front lines. Grillat wondered why he had to travel so far. Lise replied that she didn't need to shoulder everything alone anymore, and he is finally living in the outside world. With 900 years ahead, what could be more depressing than watching the world fall into the hands of monsters? A week later, the scene shifts to the dining room of the Grillat mansion, where a lavish meal has been prepared. Minori felt a gnawing hunger in her stomach, and a woman in the room offered them food to eat as much as they liked. Lise couldn't help but praise the dish, saying it was absolutely wonderful. Grillat then introduced Lisa to his wife, Silpha. Lise asked if she was the childhood friend Grillat had mentioned. Grillat confirmed, stating that he had promised to introduce them to each other. Silpha, surprised, asked if he had really made that promise to an elven, and Grillat replied that the promise had been made when he was king, before they were married. Silpha bowed her head in gratitude to Lisa for everything he had done for her husband. No matter how many times she says thank you, it will never be enough to express her gratitude. She even became emotional as she spoke. Lisa simply smiled and replied that it was what he had to do. Grillat complimented his wife, saying she was lovely, and Lisa recalled Grillat's words about proposing to his childhood friend the next time he met her, and promising to introduce her to Lisa. Lise paused, thinking about something that saddened him: the short lifespan of human beings. Grillat was astonished, remarking that it was a strange way to compliment his wife. Lise suggested they accept Silpha's invitation and call Minori in. Minori asked if she could eat, and Lisa agreed. As she tasted the food, she couldn't help but praise how delicious it was. Silpha sensed Minori's unhappiness and gently explained that it was a sincere expression of gratitude for her cooking, which made her happy and eager to cook more. Lisa admitted that they had been surviving on magical creatures they encountered along the way, along with seeds and fruits. While Minori was eating, Silpha remarked that it reminded her of Gilliat's younger days. Gilliat happily asserted that Silpha's cooking was the best in the world, and always had been. Silpha humbly replied that it was an overly sweet compliment. Then Gilliat curiously asked Lisa and Minori how they had met. At that moment, Minori suddenly stood up and declared that she was Lisa's wife. This came as a complete surprise to both Gilliat and Lisa. Gilliat exclaimed in astonishment, "So Lisa already has a wife?" Lisa quickly denied it, but when she turned to look at Minori, she simply smiled and reassured her that they would be together forever. Lisa explained that Minori had expressed a desire to become stronger, and in response, he agreed to teach her about humanity and allow her to accompany him on his journey. Sensing the sadness in Minori's eyes, Silpha approached and gently asked if she would like to try cooking with her. Minori shyly admitted that she was only good at fighting and had never cooked before. Silpha reassured her that it was okay and she didn't need to worry too much. Anyway, there's an old saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Hearing this, Minori smiled and said that Lisa would be very happy to hear this, so she would definitely try her best. The two of them then went into the kitchen together. Gilliat called Lisa and said that he had heard that it was very difficult for humans and elves to have children together, something the village chief had told him a long time ago. Lisa asked why Gilliat was bringing this up now. Gilliat then asked Lisa what she intended to do about it. Lisa replied that, unfortunately, he didn't see any signs that Minori liked him at the moment. Gilliat expressed regret about the situation. Lisa told himself that Minori might have actually harbored feelings for him for a long time, despite facing many difficulties. As Lisa and Minori were preparing to leave, he reassured her that they would return. Gilliat replied that he trusted Lisa. Gallius then intervened, reminding them that Lisa was heading towards the largest forest in Vastera, located between Fort Quecker and Riedel, where magical creatures frequently appeared. It's an extremely uncertain place, so they need to be very careful. Lisa and Minori set off toward the forest, where Lisa noticed it appeared to be a major area for adventurers hunting magical monsters on their way to Fort Quecker. Minori agreed, saying that she had been to that forest before and hunted magical monsters. Monsters that had come right to the fortress gates. In this area, they can simultaneously monitor both the adventurers and the masterminds behind the magical monsters. Lise mentioned that, according to Gilead, there was an abandoned house in the forest, and he was considering turning it into their base. Minori wondered if it was really possible to find someone with heroic qualities, because their only clue was a fairy tale. It's like searching for someone who can't use elemental magic, but they won't know for sure until they ask people to demonstrate their magical abilities. Lisa replied that, with his judgment skills, he could recognize if someone possessed heroic qualities. However, with such a large number of adventurers, they will have to evaluate each one individually. Minori expressed surprise and asked if he could actually use magic to find someone with heroic qualities. When Lisa agreed, she turned away and said that he was very impressed. Then, Lisa activated her magic to assess her condition. After a while, he asked Minori if she agreed with this approach. She asked him what he meant. Lisa explained that they had discussed this before, and that finding someone with heroic qualities could take a long time. This could last for years, potentially forcing them to stay in the forest for an extended period. He also noted that she might miss out on her entire human life if they stayed there too long. Minori replied that she had already made her decision. She spent 7 years pursuing an illusion. And she told him that for her, happiness was being with him and becoming stronger. She decided to follow him for the rest of her life. Minori blushed and declared that no matter how hard he tried to convince her not to stay, she wouldn't leave. Lise thought to himself that things were getting too close, and he turned away to reassure himself. Just then, Minori called out, saying she had spotted the house. Lise informed her that it would take 6 hours to walk from Fort Kecker to get there. Minori asked what the house in the middle of the forest would be like. He explained that before the area was overrun by monsters, Gilead's predecessor had used the house as a summer retreat. Upon hearing this, Minori thought that a nobleman's summer house must be very luxurious. However, upon arrival, they discovered the house had been destroyed. Lisa suggested they begin cleaning up. Minori was surprised, and Lisa asked what was wrong with her. She hesitated before explaining that he had just used magic to clear everything away in the blink of an eye. And she thought this was her last chance to be useful to him. Lisa explained that this magic was very useful, and he had made a temporary contract with the spirits around them, which is called spirit magic. He deciphered this when he was only 78 years old. Lise noticed Minori's deep sadness and asked her why she was so affected. Minori replied that she didn't feel sad, but Lisa remained resolute, believing it was time to complete the final step. He used egg thread magic, a type of barrier magic. Lise then gathered some soil from the nearby area, causing Minori to ask him what he was doing. He told her not to rush and to wait. Suddenly, the land transformed, growing back into a shield surrounding the house. Minori wondered what was happening, and Lisa explained that the house was now invisible to the outside world thanks to this shield, and neither monsters nor ghosts could find them while they were searching for those who possessed the courage factor. Minori was impressed and realized that he really could do everything on his own. She recalled his kindness and expressed her willingness to do anything for him. However, he continued to thank her. She understood that he would be perfectly fine on his own. And she realized that her desire to stay with him was a selfish wish of hers. She never knew who her parents were. As a slave, she simply existed to survive. And it was at that very moment, when she was about to be killed, that he arrived to save her. And for the next 7 years, no one wanted to join her team, simply because she had been a slave. She did everything she could to survive, not wanting to waste the gift life had given her. In the 7th year of their promise, she still went to their meeting place every day, waiting for him, always reminiscing about the past. She longed to tell him that her wish had come true, but she couldn't be happy about that. She didn't want him to keep her around just out of pity. She was determined to become a useful person, no longer a burden. She thought about ways to truly help him. She wanted to become strong enough to fight alongside him. She asked him if he planned to find someone with heroic qualities and defeat the evil monster together. He replied that if he could, he would. But he didn't have the necessary heroic qualities to fight the evil monsters. Perhaps they needed to practice first. However, he wasn't sure when that would happen. Minori was confident that he could defeat the demonic monster, and she suggested that he train her while they traveled together. He doubted whether she was strong enough. She replied that she also wanted to fight alongside him to defeat the evil monster. He understood her goal, and he agreed to train her right away. He pushed her to practice as hard as she could, causing both his and Minori's faces to turn bright red. The landscape had changed after 2 years, and as they ran through the forest, she called out his name. Minori announced that she had discovered 5 magical beasts at their 3 o'clock position. He used his appraisal magic, and she noticed there were 4 B-rank monsters and 1 A-rank monster. Lisa realized that Minori had become very proficient in using appraisal techniques.